Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Now that we know the history of Darkon, let's talk of those who call this land home. Darkon boasts the most diverse populace in the core, including both human ethnicities and a large non-human population. Sadly, I cannot say that such an immense immigrant population is earned in any way. Let me explain. Whenever a newcomer arrives in a Darkon, an unseen clock starts ticking down to midnight. If that newcomer is still in a kingdom when the time runs out, their past suddenly drains away, one memory at a time, over the course of several hours. As the newcomer's last memories fade into oblivion, his mind is immediately flooded with complete memories of a life spent in Darkon. The process can take multiple months, but it continues for as long as one is in the kingdom. The memory drain is exclusive to the domain of Darkon, and the moment a claimed individual leaves the kingdom, the false memories fade and their true past return, like a sleepwalker waking from the dream. That's why all of the Darkonians who never venture outside of their domain have a deep-rooted fear of not being real, so to speak. Maybe that's why ornamental chains hold specific significance, symbolically binding whether to another, such as the state or an individual. Barons and magistrates wear their seals of office on iron chains while holding court. Necklaces or bracelets often replace rings used in other realms to seal weddings and similar social contracts. Even the fact that Kargat wear no insignia is significant. They are literally unbound, free to perform their duties as they see fit. Darkon is divided into rigid social hierarchy, with wide gaps between the classes. Most Darkonians are peasants and servants. A thriving middle class of artisans and merchants with connections to trade guilds wields considerable influence in larger communities, but in reality, the society functions to serve a handful of aristocrats atop Darkon's social strata, who in turn serve the king. Despite these contradictions, all Darkonians are technically free men and social advancement is possible, assuming one possesses sufficient talent and ambition. The movement down the social ladder is also not uncommon, with Adeline stripping aristocrats of their land and titles for one mistake or the other. Education is seen as a key to advancement. Literacy is a point of pride, and even the poorest families often possess an heirloom book used to teach letters to their children. Those wishing to extend their education can move on to one of the Darkon's universities. Until the Requiem, the University of Sakhanaluk stood as Darkon's uncontested center of learning, but in the wake of their destruction, scholars now seek for a replacement in Makel, Sidnar or Brodslava, built on the shore of Stagnus Lake in Boglands. Few know that Brodslava Institute is also the seat of the Fraternity of Shadows, a group of academics and arcanists researching the domains of Ravenloft. Darkonians lack the superstitious fear of magic that is commonplace in so many lands. Magic is seen as primordial force, neither friend nor foe to mortals. However, they do feel an educated fear for the magic and those who wield it. Darkonians associate arcane power with secrecy and rarely show it in public. Darkonian spirituality is deeply rooted in a myriad of folktales and traditions surrounding the Grey Realm and Darkon's mythic origins. Darkonians believe that the mortal world was stolen from the Grey Realm, and the dead will someday reclaim all that is theirs. The spark of life is mortality, so like all living things, the world must die. The inevitable apocalypse began the moment Darkonos seized Death's prize, and the hour of ascension will merely toll its end. Darkonians revere their dead, interring corpses in vast cemeteries filled with stone monuments and memorials. This respect comes from the desire to appease the dead and make sure that they are not jealous of the living. The borders of cemeteries are always clearly marked, and the first corpse buried in each is said to become a Grim, a spirit that guards the border between life and death. In most cases, a dog is sacrificed to fill this role. Roughly 60 years ago, Aslan codified Darkonians' existing folklore to create a state religion. Like the Kargat, its priests, called sentinels, were exempt from the baronial law, and the clergy soon filled with domineering opportunists. Although Darkonians still adhere to their order's teachings about revering the dead, they have always resented the intrusions of the church itself. The Eternal Order recognizes numerous holidays, though only two are particularly significant. The Festival of the Dead, held in November, is a colorful festival marking the mythic deluge of life. Revelers parade through the streets in morbid costumes, pantomiming the retreat of the dead. The notorious Darkest Night, however, offers no cause for celebration. Sentinels spend dusk to dawn intoning a rite called the Requiem to keep the dead at bay, and even the smallest light must be extinguished. Despite the collapse of the church during the Requiem of 750 Barovian calendar, these holidays are still widely observed. The collapse of Eternal Order has created opportunities for the foreign religions with an eye of Darkon's faithful. The most popular of these newcomer religions is the Church of Ezra. The church worships a mortal woman, Ezra, who is believed to have ascended to a divine form. Yet it is divided into 4 major sects, each adhering to a different interpretation of her teachings. The faith holy book, the Book of Ezra, is divided into 4 chapters, each written by a founding bastion of one of these respective sects. The sects comply with the edicts of the home faith in Borca, but otherwise are autonomous. The church had long sought to make inroads in Darkon, but until recently its anchorites convinced only a few souls. One such convent was Theodore Rains, who was studying the faith in Borca when the Great Upheaval struck. Rains interpreted the Great Upheaval as an attempt by the Mists to expel Ezra from their ranks, the first omen of coming time when the forces of evil would scour the world clean. Rains returned to Darkon, spreading warnings of a coming apocalypse he calls the time of unparalleled darkness. Rains claims that Ezra guided him through a series of visions, but his preaching had found little support until the Requiem, when his dire prophecies suddenly sounded too real. Rains penned the 4th book of Ezra, and the home faith sanctioned him as the founder of the newest sect. All the real power in the domain flows from Aslin Rex. He has ruled Darkon for more than 2 centuries, and he's undoubtedly also the Dreadlord at the kingdom's heart. Aslin's extreme longevity does not disturb his subjects, but they don't believe him to be truly immortal, as all things will return to the Grey Realm. Darkonians acknowledge the rumors that Aslin is undead, but have been skillfully conditioned for generations to dismiss such rumors as paranoia. Public opinion of Aslin has varied widely over the decades, but he currently enjoys a wave of popularity as he restores Darkon to glory. Darkon is built on an ancient code of allegiances. Subjects at each level of society must pledge their fealty to their immediate superiors and oversee their inferiors. The king sits atop the feudal pyramid. All citizens pledge allegiance to him, and Darkon is ultimately his personal responsibility. Aslin puts on seasonal masquerade balls in Avernus, where he holds court for nobles who wish to improve their standing or issue complaints. Fueled by sourness wine and exotic entertainments, however, these galas inevitably degenerate into hedonistic exercises in depravity. Royal law is enforced however Aslin sees fit. As his private police, the Kargat are exempt from baronial law and answer only to their immediate superiors and Aslin himself. Crimes against the king are frequently decided not in a public forum, but with a knock on the door in the middle of the night. The Kargat serve in a limited public role in a few towns as the guards in prisons for those who broke the royal law. Prisoners who enter the citadels of pain are never seen again. The Kargat also flow invisibly through the society, keeping a close watch on any threats to the state. The Kargat's upper ranks are actually filled with monstrous shapeshifters and undead, from ghosts to vampires and everything in between. Aslin's attention kept the Kargat operation as a unified whole, but these predators reverted to their natural instincts after his fall, killing themselves and people of Darkon. The Kargat shattered into numerous competing factions, which reportedly remain unstable even now. Aslin's insidious control over Darkon does not end with his secret police. Over the decades, the vampiric masters of Kargat have lured countless common citizens under the promise of immortality and turned them into informants and assassins. The members of Kargatan believe that they are chosen ones, carefully guarding the alchemical secrets of extended life. In fact, they are sadly deluded. The Kargat use the Kargatan as expendable pawns. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. Darkon is undoubtedly a perfect place for those who wish to educate themselves and those around them. But are their memories a reasonable price to pay? For now, while you still remember me, be careful while crossing the mists.